Welcome back to another episode of the South by East podcast, where we talk about everything from the scriptures to music to culture and everything in between. Today is just me while Braille is on vacation. And as we jump into here, we have this clip from comedian Marcus D. Wiley, where he's talking about the difference between straightening up and cleaning up. Let's take a look at a small bit of that clip.
I grew up in a home where they cleaned up. They cleaned up in the home I grew up in. I got married. And I went to a home where they straightened up. Cleaning up and straightening up, two different things.
He said cleaning up and straightening up are two different things. And you know, if you have kids especially, then you know how this plays out. And you tell them to go clean up, and then when you go in, you're like, I told you to clean up. And they say, I did clean up. And you're like, no, you just threw everything in a big pile. And that's the thing. There is a difference in recognizing the difference. Straightening it up is often cosmetic. We can straighten up by putting everything under the bed and throwing the comforter down. We can straighten up by throwing everything in the closet. But cleaning is corrective. Straightening up just puts things in a place other than where they are at now. Cleaning deals with what is dirty, what's actually wrong, and correcting it. This happens not just when it comes to our rooms, but also in our lives. We do this. We can manage appearances. We can try to straighten up things. But often what happens is it's a collective thing. It gathers on one another. And until we take the energy that it really calls for to clean up, that thing that's out of place never truly gets right. And so frequently, we can go through life like that. And here's where this meets. One, when we trick ourselves into settling for straightening up versus cleaning up, we remain in unhealthy situations. And often, while in those unhealthy situations, we find a way to blame everyone and everything else for the situation we in and never really look at the root cause to address, man, this really required cleaning, and I've never dedicated myself to the process. Cleaning is a process. Straightening up, I can just move some things around, but when I go to clean, then I got to get out mop buckets. I got to make mop water. I got to, actually make some dishwater. I got to actually dust. And it's more than just a rearranging. And I can look at my life in different times where I try to take a surface level approach to something that really had deeper roots. When I started so many times I wanted to lose weight. And I thought that losing weight was just the issue of what I put in my mouth. What I quickly found out after so many failed attempts and sitting down with someone to walk me through that process, to guide me and to walk beside me, was that what I put in my mouth was really a deeper issue of what I held in my heart. And unsettled things that I dealt with or that I refused to deal with that continued to produce the results that I was seeing in my life. Eating was my coping mechanism. And if you've had any kind of addiction, like I struggled with, then it's not only hard to get started, but it's hard to sustain. And one of the hardest things about getting started in an area where you have an addiction is sometimes you can feel so far gone, right? Here's the deal. If I had a debt of $10, I would think nothing of it if I had to pay that back. But if I get a medical bill for $50,000, it could seem insurmountable to me. And then I could just think, why try? I might as well just let it go to claims and then just deal with it then and just ride it out until it goes off. And sometimes, yeah, just letting it get written off, that's a straightening up action. Actually working to pay that back and get it off of my credit report, that's a cleaning up action. And when you're dealing with an addiction and something emotional that has a deeper angle, it can be so tempting to just straighten and to think it's too far gone. And then we can start to tell ourselves or have internal dialogues of, how do I just manage this where it doesn't look as bad and doesn't cause me so much embarrassment in the public eye or around those that I care about their opinions. But never truly feel good about ourselves, never really truly feel confident, whether it's a reading impediment or a speech impediment, whether it's some other issue in our lives, and we can sit in that space. And really it takes a good support system and help and persistence, not only by ourselves, but by those around us. And this is why I love where Marcus ends that clip. He begins by joking that, he got married where he grew up in a house that cleaned up, and he got married, and his wife was more of a straightener. But then he talks about after several years of marriage, his wife became a cleaner. And his household began to adjust to not just straightening up things, but actually cleaning up. And that's the other part of this, is actually staying with something long enough to see growth. Many of us are in situations or walk into situations we want it ready-made. And because we want something to be ready-made and ready to go, we never truly see the potential and what things can be. We never really truly get to value what they are because we've demanded instantaneous rather than taking a long-term approach. One of the ways I like to term that is we take the day trading approach instead of the 401k approach. And that's a challenge always in life. We all do have finite time, finite resources, finite energy, and we got to decide where to put those. My hope is that we find at least some areas in our lives where we're willing to fight the long game. We're willing to play the long game and be invested in those, because there's people and there's relationships and there's places that matter. And when things matter, we're willing to not demand instantaneous results. We're willing to show some perseverance, some forbearance. And that's a hard thing in a world that so many things come instantaneous to us. But we miss out on the sweetness of life when we give up too soon. Now, there's a difference between being unwise and being unhealthy and being in a toxic place and then being in a place that just needs some growth. And those are things we should always consider in a situation. Never should we stay in a situation that is unhealthy or unsafe. Please don't hear me saying that. And there should be some times where we look at a situation that is not where we want it to be, but that we're willing to take the slow and methodical journey to see it grow to that place. So that's my encouragement for you today. You may be in a situation where all that's been done is being straightening as you walked into it. But you have an opportunity to be a part of cleaning. I look at that in so many places and see where it has brought such joy in my heart to see actual change and transformation happen in places that people had given up on or thought could never be something. And so I encourage you to find that place and to invest deeply in it, into that relationship, into that person. Because when you've had that kind of investment in your life, you never forget it. And you go back to it time and time again. But what says you? Where is a place in your life that someone has invested deeply and it's meant the world to you? Someone has shown great patience and allowed you to grow and to blossom, and it's meant the world to you. Mention that in the comments. Remember to like, share, and comment, and we'll see you next time in the intersection.